Wednesday afternoon, October the 26th at 3 o'clock. And in case you're happen to view the recorded version of this. Today we have a very special guest. It's our own Ted Barber, who is coming to us from a parking lot somewhere in Charleston. Hey, Ted.
Hey, how you doing, Becky?
Good, good. And before we get started with Ted, I'm going to introduce you to the two committee members that'll be handling this today. Pete Mangiovanni is going to be talking to Ted and interviewing him. And Patty Overly is going to be taking your chat questions online. And in fact, Patty, you have a couple of things that you want to tell everybody before we start.
Absolutely. So good afternoon, everyone. What I really want to encourage is a lot of interaction here. We don't have the old days where we get to be in the presentation room, but we do have a chat feature down at the bottom. So if you hover your mouse down towards the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little bubble there that says chat. Click that and a chat box will come up on the side or in the middle of your screen. You can move that to the side if you need to, but right there is where you'll chat in your questions. If you'll pay close attention to the to line where it is in blue, that is where you can send it out to all of us so that we can know your questions and get those answered for you. Back to you, Becky.
Okay. As I mentioned, Ted Barber is our special guest. He is the president of a committee known as CLOC. It's the Citizens-Led Oversight Committee, which is in charge of reviewing the construction projects that were authorized by the recent referendum for the Beaufort County schools. So Ted, basically, I guess we'll just start out with, tell us about this project and why it's so important to Beaufort County.
Well, let me just kind of open it up, and then I'll have Patty pull a couple of slides up to give everybody background. But the Citizen-Led Oversight Committee was formed when the bond referendum was voted on by the citizens of Beaufort County. And so what the committee is responsible for is basically oversight and reporting back to the school board and to the citizens of Beaufort County on the success of the projects as they are implemented. Now, people ask me, why did I get involved in this process? Well, first of all, I think one of the most important things is that the school system of Beaufort County is important to all of us, whether we are retirees or whether we have students who do attend the schools, because the schools actually set our future as we educate our students. So I felt that it was very important that I get involved in this project. I was actually asked to be involved by Dr. Frank Rodriguez, the superintendent, who actually picked the members of the Citizen-Led Oversight Committee. So I was asked to be on that, and then I was elected the chairperson of the committee by my other 8 peers that are on that committee. So that's a little bit of background about why I'm doing that, and I can go straight in and share some slides with you about the history of the bond referendum and what we do. So let me go to the second slide and talk about the background of the actual referendum itself. What started in January of 2019 to initiate what we needed to do for improvements to the schools was a community project review committee was established, and they looked at all 26 schools in Beaufort County, and they also looked at other things outside of the county to understand what projects needed to be done within the schools themselves. And this committee, known as the CPRC, or the Community Project Relations Committee, identified $629 million worth of district-wide projects that needed to be, that needed work within the actual schools. And the Board of Education actually took that list and they developed what they called a priority list for this bond referendum that we voted on, which is $344 million, which were considered and voted on by all of us as citizens of Beaufort County. So in November of 2019, after that group met in January of 19 and the school board put the proposal forward, the voters of the county overwhelmingly approved the bond referendum itself in two parts. And now let me share what those two parts are. First of all, there was $290 million that was approved for safety and security upgrades to all schools across the district, technology upgrades to all the schools, which would be IT systems, computer systems, and those types of things. So all of the stuff like we're using today via the computers and using Zoom and those types of things was upgrading all the schools in technology. Also, there were additions planned for River Ridge Academy and May River High School, because both of those schools are way over capacity at this point. Also, a replacement school for Robert Smalls International Academy. Robert Smalls is over near, Walmart on the other side of town. It is an international academy, and that will be a completely new rebuilt school. And then also 3 schools would have extensive renovations: Beaufort Elementary, Hilton Head Middle, and Battery Creek High School. Then the second phase of the referendum was $54 million that we voted on for career technology educational expansion. So this is around students who were looking at career or technologies versus college curriculum. And so there are improvements being made will be made at Battery Creek and May River High Schools. Also for Hilton Head High, and improvements to all athletic facilities at the district's middle and high schools, and playground equipment at all of the and early childhood education and the preschool, pre-K schools. Now, the total bond referendum was $344 million, and all of those projects are scheduled to be completed by 2024. So it's a 4-year time frame. So let me talk a little bit about the role of the Citizen-Led Oversight Committee. The CLOC, as we're called, we're an independent group of volunteers, and we monitor all of the referendability projects. We monitor the schedules and the budgets and the expenditures associated with all of the projects. Now, as I said earlier in my introduction, we report directly to you and the public, and the Board of Education. So we do not report to the superintendent or anyone in the school district operations. We meet monthly, and we review progress against all referendum projects in regards to cost and schedule. We also complete a quarterly report, and that report we present to the Beaufort County Board of Education, and it is posted on the website. We also have our minutes, and all of our review documentation is also posted on the CLOC area of the Beaufort County School District website for everyone to review. Now, I had the pleasure of being the chairman of the committee, but we have a vast amount of experience with the 8 other members. There are 9 of us in total, and we have professional people from all walks and backgrounds of life. We have CPAs, urban planners, civil engineers, we have project managers, and we have communication experts. So we have a great group of folks. So what I want to show you on the next page is I actually want to show you this. If you've never looked at it, this is a screenshot of the Beaufort County School System's website. You can go to it at beaufortk12.sc.us. So you can type it in and look it under your search engine, and you'll see this is the page. You see a copy of the school board on your left in that photograph. And in the middle, you see the picture of that bulldozer. That's actually the referendum project monitoring section. If you click on that, then you come to the next page, which will get you the bond referendum project. So you can see down the left-hand side, the navigation page, there's a whole host of things you can check on the referendum, what it incorporated. You can look at the different projects by school. And then there's also the area that is our Citizen-Led Oversight Committee page. So if you click on that link on the left-hand side, you go to the next page, and this actually gives you our Citizen-Led Oversight Committee page. And this is where all of our information is housed for you to review. All of our meeting minutes, as I said earlier, our notes, our presentations, our financial reviews are all on that page. If you click on that section on the left around the information, you'll see on the next slide, you'll see like presentation and meeting notes. So every month, everything that we review in our meetings is posted for the citizens to review. Now, we did meet in October. We meet the first Wednesday of every month. So our October information has not been posted. It will be posted once we approve the minutes from our November meeting, which will occur a week from this Wednesday. So we'll meet the first Wednesday in November for our monthly update. I encourage all of you, if you have questions about any of the schools or any of the progress on projects or anything that our committee is working on, look at this section on the website, and all of that information is there for your review. We have a normal review process that we go through and review all the projects. That presentation is there. We look at all the financials for the projects. That's there for you to see. We look at all of the contingency log and the contingency budget and how that's being utilized and what has been approved. So we review all of that in detail, and then all of that information is then shared back with the school board itself at our monthly update, which we conduct on a regular basis. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Pete to see if you have any questions about the Citizen-Led Oversight Committee and what we do. And I'll take those as they come in. So I'll be glad to answer your questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Ted. By the way, for all of you watching, I got onto the website today myself, and it's really pretty easy to monitor and pretty easy to navigate through and see what's going on. I know you monitor projects as they're progressing, but does the committee review any contracts signed by the board, like before they're signed or just after they're signed?
Pete, that's a great question. Thank you. We do not review any contracts. Now, we know what is in the design process because the work has to be, first of all, designed by architects. And then we also know when they are sending that information out for bid to general contractors for that work. But once a contractor, for example, is selected, the school board is responsible for reviewing that, and they are responsible for approving it along with the legal department of the school system. We have no attorneys on the Citizen-Led Oversight Committee, and it's a legal document, and that contract is between the actual school board and the school system and that contractor. So we do not get in the legal ramifications of contracts.
Okay, thank you. Your committee certainly has to develop relationships among several groups within the county. You got the school administration, the elected school board, then the different schools in the north of Broad and south of Broad. How do you work to maintain those relationships and develop communications with those groups?
Thanks, Pete. The way we do that is we work primarily through the superintendent's office, and we work with the director of operations. His name is Robert Otting, and Robert is responsible he runs all the operations of the school district, including he has responsibility for all of the referendum projects. So we work through his office, and then we review everything based upon the schedule that has been established for all of that work up till 2024. Now, of course, we visit sites and we meet superintendents. We meet with the superintendent at sites. We also meet the principals in many cases when we're visiting sites, but we work primarily through the director of operations office, who has the ultimate responsibility that he reports to Dr. Frank Rodriguez when it comes to all of the referendum projects themselves.
I'm sure that's a lot of discussions go on there. By the way, just want to remind everybody that if you have a question, please go to your chat function and ask the question, and then Patty Overly will jump in and let me know there's a question, and then we can get it answered. This next question, in my mind, is this is the magic bullet that all taxpayers love to hear. The September second quarter report from the committee shared the following: the May River and River Ridge projects are on time and under budget. We all love to hear that. It also says that this demonstrates the effectiveness of the construction management and risk model for these projects as a sound approach. What was your oversight and involvement with these particular projects?
Yeah, Pete, what we do is, first of all, the county has a very sound plan in which they develop the budgets for all of these projects. And then what they do is they go out and get final design for the projects from architects, and then they go out obtain cost estimates from contractors. But the model that they are using, which makes it very effective, is what's known as contractor at risk model. This gets in a little detail, but what happens is they sign a contract with the general contractor to do a project, and that contractor gives them what's known as a guaranteed maximum price. And that's the maximum it would take to build that project. But the way that works is that if the project actually comes in under budget based on aggressive pricing and based on them effectively managing the project, that money actually goes back to the school district. They do not get to keep it. They are paid a fee, a percentage fee of the project to manage the project. Now, if the risk part on them is that if they don't effectively manage it and manage the cost, if it goes over the guaranteed maximum price, they have to absorb that.
Wow.
So there's no county in this respect. So that's why these projects in total are going to end up at about $1 million under budget. Then that money will go back into the referendum and will be used as we move forward. So it's an effective way to get good costing. It's not necessarily what most people think is the low price bid, because a lot of times that gets you in trouble when you do that, because contractors low bid it and then they make changes and try to get additional funds out of you. This guaranteed maximum price assures that we're spending only what we said we would spend and no more. And in many cases, as the two examples of May River and River Ridge, where they actually came in under budget.
Wow. So that might be considered, for other people who have worked, it might be like a not to exceed contract.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fixed contract with the general contractor that does that work, and they're taking the risk, but then they're paid a set fee based upon that risk. So, you know, they don't have to manage what we call a margin within the actual subcontracts. They actually have to just perform based upon what they said they would do, and they get a fee.
Okay.
And that's how.
We did get a question. Pat, do you want me to go ahead and ask that question we got from the membership? Okay, we have a question here. It's a local question, I think a really good one. A lot of people would like to see the facility for St. Helena Elementary improved. Question, how is that decided, and does your committee have any sway on this?
First of all, we do not have any say on the needs. That need was remember that needs list was put together by that committee that met in January. However, St. Helena Elementary, as an example, they just received a brand new playground as part of the first phase.
Okay.
So playground and new playground equipment at the elementary school. Also, all of their technology and security is being upgraded as well. For example, at Beaufort High School has a brand new track. They have a brand new athletic turf football field, and they have a new press box at the baseball complex, and they're getting ready to start a new training and workout room for all of the athletes to use at the high school. Okay. So those that were way overdue, they got done, for example, at Beaufort High School. So remember, these are spread all across the county, but school expansions are based on utilization of those schools. And so that's why some of the schools receive extensive renovations or expansion versus others.
Okay, well, we had another question come in, so we'll deal with those because people are evidently interested. This is one you touched on briefly when you went through your slide presentation. And is that, why is improving the schools so important to Dataw?
Well, let me use an example. Before many of us retired, when we relocated to different communities, if we ever did, what was one of the first things we looked at? We looked at whether the schools, whether they had a quality education within a particular area. Not everyone that lives in Beaufort County is retired like us on Dataw. So we always have to attract people to come to Beaufort County to work. And actually Dataw Island hires people. Many of the people who work in food service or work on the golf course, they have children, and those children go to Beaufort County schools. So we're helping support that employee base that we have, that we use right on Dataw Island, but it also supplies all the other businesses around us. And it makes it attractive for people to move to Beaufort County, especially those who have school-aged children, so the children can receive a good education in great facilities, and it attracts people, and that's why it's important. believe me, housing values are tied directly to how well schools are managed and what the school systems are like within counties. Even though we don't have students, it impacts the overall value of things within the county. So that's why it's important.
Okay, well, that's, that's the old seafarers, a rising tide raises all boats. And anything that improves the education locally improves the community as a whole.
Correct.
Tell us about what you found when you visited the work projects at Beaufort High School.
Well, I actually had a chance to visit that. And if you've never been to Beaufort High School, they originally had an old regular grass turf field that was in pretty poor condition. They had an asphalt track that was uneven. It had unleveled spots in it. So they now have a beautiful athletic field, which is actually synthetic turf, which is safer for the football players. It's easier to maintain. It's more cost effective. And they have an all brand new composite track. Many people don't understand this about Beaufort High School. When I talk about track and field, Beaufort High School has one of the best track and field teams in this part of the state, and in many cases in the entire state of South Carolina. The track and field program at Beaufort High School is outstanding, and they have some outstanding athletes that participate in that. And they now have a brand new composite track that they can run on, as well as the other field sport tracks that were improved in this project. So it's beautiful. If you've never been there, you can actually drive down and go see it. It's before you get to the school. It's back there. I encourage everyone to go take a look at that brand new field. It's very stunning. Did a great job, and long term it'll be more cost effective to maintain for the county.
Okay, good. Thank you. We have another question from one of our viewers. And remember, viewers, if you have a question, please go to the chat and send it in. Do you actually review the scope of the various projects, or is the focus on how projects are executed?
No, we actually do look at the scope of every project. We go through and see what is actually going to be done just for understanding. But again, our primary charge is to make sure that they stay on schedule and that they manage the cost within it. They develop a long list of the scope of what goes on in the schools by actually holding what's known as a charrette process. And in engineering and design work, that's where you get the parents together, the students together, you get the teachers together, and they actually provide input into what they need to make the project effective. So what resources need to be put in the project, and what would make their jobs easier, and from the students, what would make their learning easier. So they provide input into the final design before it is actually executed. So that's where the input comes from. So they're the actual receiver and the customer of that project. So it's best that you get their input so that you can meet their needs.
Well, how do you, I imagine you get quite a bit of input. How do you rank it or decide in the end what projects need to be reviewed? Because I'm sure there are some things that people are recommending that you just can't do.
Right, that is correct. And we don't do that. The actual school department, the operations department does that themselves with their team. And then what they do is they rank order them, and they ask the participants to rank order them and basically vote on which ones are most important. And those that come out on the top are the ones that are executed. You can't do them all. So it becomes forced ranked by the participants.
Okay. Another question from the viewers. I heard we had a poor showing outside of Dataw in the census. Does the school district use actual student count or census data for deciding what or where to build or improve?
They don't use the census data. They use from when they look at the projects based upon where the most need is going to be. Based upon, for example, why did they expand May River High School? Because May River High School was way over capacity versus some of. So you move to where your capacity needs are for expansions. Robert Spall's International Academy has been very, very successful, and it's one of the older buildings, so it needs to be expanded and renovated because of its age. So they prioritize based upon that. You want to build stuff just as you need it, You don't want to build something and then have empty classrooms sitting there that you're not using,
Right,
because then
right.
funds as well. So that's how they prioritize based upon the growth, and they look at the demographics, of course, of where those growth areas are in north and south of the Broad River, and where they need that actual additional capacity within the schools when it comes to actual physical space.
Well, that brings up another question, though. Is there were some schools that are running well under capacity. Is that being taken into account when you're looking at all these projects?
Yes, it is. And those schools are still receiving upgrades. They're receiving technology upgrades, security upgrades. They're receiving, if they need, a new playground, like an elementary or a kindergarten needs additional playground equipment or new playground equipment because it's not in good repair, then they actually receive that information. They receive a project as well. There's, as I said, you can go on and look. There's a list of all the projects that are listed by school. You can see that, and you can see where they are in the progress of, is it being designed, is it being contracted out, or is it underway? So you can look at that on the website under each individual school.
Okay, thanks. Again, if you have a question, please type it in. For you, what is the biggest takeaway at this point from this project?
Well, I think for me, personally, all of us that are involved in this, is we recognize what's needed, or what this Dr. Rodriguez and we're trying to do with the referendum project is order to actually, provide the resources when it comes to buildings or infrastructure or technology for the students of Beaufort County. We're not compensated. We're all volunteers. We're independent, and we're just here to lend a voice to and provide our input to the citizens and to the actual school board of what's going on. So there's some independent review. We had some unusual times prior to Dr. Rodriguez being hired as the superintendent. So now he has established this process as a way, I think, to build trust with the taxpayers within the county in the use of these funds. And so that's what we're here to do. But however, we know that we are independent. We are, the way I like to describe it is we're independent auditors. We're auditing this and then we're reporting back. So if things are going well, we'll say that. If they're not going well, we will say that as well. And we'll update Dr. Rodriguez as well as the school board if there are issues. And that's our role. So we're completely independent.
Okay, we have another question from a viewer. Do other counties in South Carolina have similar committees to yours? And how is the Beaufort committee similar or different if there are committees like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. There are many school districts that do this, several in South Carolina. Dr. Rodriguez came to us from Florida, and he actually used this process in Florida for referendums as well. So he brought that best practice with him as part of that. It was one of the things that he mentioned when he came and spoke at Dataw not too long ago to this for this same forum, and he talked about how he was going to do this, establish this committee as part of the referendum project, and he brought that with him, and I think it lends that overall that overall independence and provides the citizens with an independent voice. So it's a common practice across a lot of districts, not only South Carolina, it's used in other states as well.
Okay, thank you. Getting some more questions from the viewers. Government projects tend to take longer than originally anticipated. Will the work be completed on the time frame established? And as an adjunct to that is a question I thought I had. What happens if it really goes super well and there's money left over? What happens to that money, as well as to, will the work be completed on the time frame?
Well, that's a good question. First of all, we can lump government projects all into one bucket if we wish to, but the incentive with managing a project on time, especially these projects, is that we review the schedule, and it's important to stay on schedule, because as a project drags and goes past the schedule, guess what happens to the cost? It goes up. So, but remember, with the project management at risk, or the contract at risk with the contractor, he does not want to get behind schedule. So he's given a scheduled deadline for completion, and that he has to, they have to meet that requirement, or they end up costing themselves money.
Right.
Now, what happens with the monies? The bond referendum is a total amount over the 4 years. The actual district only sells, goes out and sells those bonds in the public as they need the funds.
Okay.
44 million has not been all funded yet. They fund it as they need it, because remember, you have to fund it, you have to then begin to pay back through the bond process. So each time they will go back and sell more bonds as the projects meet the overall 4-year schedule and raise those funds in order to, you know, implement those projects.
Okay, good, thank you. How would you encourage Datawites who are interested in getting involved in the future?
Well, what I would first encourage those of Dataw is that if there's an opportunity for you to volunteer in the school, that you do that. Also, I think there are ways that you can actually attend forums. When the superintendent has a forum, you can encourage the work that the superintendent is doing. You can also, you know, also volunteer, as I said, at other schools for projects where they need, you know, reading, working in the library, you know, all types of ways to do that to help and give back to the actual school district itself. So that's just a couple of ways. You know, all of us who serve on this committee, we volunteer our time, and I love working with these folks. They're a great group of people, but they take their jobs, you know, their assignments very seriously. And so we really appreciate also the support of those across the county, the citizens who support us and what we do.
Wonderful. Okay, the last question I have, unless somebody else has one on there, is, do you foresee a future for this type of committee with other county projects beyond the schools?
Well, I can't really talk about that when it comes to other projects for the county. I will like to say this, though. Remember, I mentioned earlier that the Citizen-Led the review committee that was put together early on in January of 19 identified over 600 million in projects. We're only addressing 344 million. So after the 4 years, we're going to be faced with looking at things again, because Beaufort County has not done any significant work in the county, you know, in over 8 years. 2 bond referendums were turned down. There were needs back then. So we're actually playing catch up at this point. And that's my personal opinion based on I know what needs to be done in the future. But that 344 only addresses a portion of what we're going to need to do based on the original 629 that was estimated in January of 2019. And if the county continues to grow, who knows? I don't know what's on the horizon, but we'll have to continue to address the needs of the students of Beaufort County in the future.
Okay. Well, from my standpoint, Becky, I think that's all the questions we had. Ted's done a marvelous job of answering them all for us very succinctly. We appreciate that very much. So with that, Becky, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, Pete. Thanks so much, Pete, for doing that. And thank you, Ted, for an outstanding speakers forum. I think that Dataw is well known for its volunteerism, and this right here is a really good example of it. I would like to thank all of you for coming and remind you that the November, maybe December speakers forum, we don't have a date yet, will be the commanding officer of the Marine Corps Air Station, and it'll be about the F-35. And I think we all know without a doubt that that airplane is up there, but maybe we don't know entirely what its capabilities are or the effects that it has on Beaufort County economically, having that training program here and all of that. So stay tuned for our flyer on that, and we hope you'll join us. And thank you so much for joining us today. And thanks again, Ted Barber.
You're welcome.
Right. I'm going to end the meeting.